also see Velvet and Judith and Scott. Fantastic to have all of you here today. We have many more names on the other page of this. Well, welcome everyone. Excited to be here with you. And yesterday we had a great talk, and I was reminded of my deep love and passion for the ancient Greek philosophy. And one of the things that I like about the ancient Greek philosophers is in particular the 4 ancient Greek cardinal virtues. And so those cardinal virtues are really interesting to ponder. That's what I'd like us to spend our chat today. And the first one is courage. The second one is self-discipline. They call it temperance, but self-discipline. The third is wisdom. And so any knowledge, that you've gained and then applied in your life, or, that's wisdom. And then the last one is compassion. They call it justice. And they're asking us basically in this ancient Greek philosophy, they're asking us to embody these virtues in our everyday life. And it's pretty interesting because when you look at, and I'll give you an example and then we can have an open discussion. First of all, these virtues, they relate to the different elements, like, or let's say the different mind, body, and soul, right? Emotions as well. So that's 4. So soul, mind, body, emotions. And so you'll take each, when you're looking at it, you'll take each of these virtues and then relate them and see how you are able to bring harmony for all these levels of being, right? So mind, body, soul, and emotional being. And it's an interesting observation to make, because there are, of course, many, many virtues that a person can choose to embody in life. And you can definitely relate them back to these cardinal virtues. But the ancient Greek philosophy says that from these 4 key virtues, then you can derive all the other different virtues. And so in an example, if we look at courage as the first one, and we take, so let's speak about courage first. Courage is derived from the English word courage is cor, which is Latin for heart, or the inner space of emotions and passions. So when you think about having courage to do something, you have this inner strength or fortitude, and that drives you. And so this is very relatable to our business, right? So if you're embarking on this new endeavor and you want to establish your e-commerce business, then you first need to have the courage to do that, to have the courage to embark on this journey, to take the risk, to sign up, to complete the tasks that you need to complete. And then if we take this idea of courage, we first have to understand that it's definitely not the absence of fear. Okay. So one overcoming something, it doesn't mean that you don't experience fear, or so you're basically, there is no lack of fear, but it's acting in spite of the fear. So you have that courage if you're confronted with a lion or with something that is, can really get you at the core of things, then you then find that courage to confront this occurrence, whatever you need to overcome. So if we're talking about mugs, then, understanding how to upload these mugs, understanding how to do it, and having the courage to act or to ask as well, to be able to move your business forward. So we definitely are not saying that there might not be some kind of fear, but we learn through courage to really tame that and to be able to move in spite of the fear. And so if we take this idea of courage, the first of the cardinal virtues, and we look to see how it relates to the other virtues that are presented. So for instance, temperance or a self-discipline. And so with the courage that we've cultivated, we can then maintain this self-discipline, even if we're feeling discomfort. And that's a powerful thing to understand. So oftentimes when we hear self-discipline, we'll think, okay, well, I won't eat this, or I won't eat that, or I'm now going to start this new regime where I'm going to, I don't know, run for 10 miles or whatever it is that you want to do. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be those things. It can also be you adapting the new, the daily mode of operation. That is self-discipline. If you committed to something on a day-to-day basis and you stick with it, you stay with it, and you are disciplined in that, well, then when you combine that with the courage, you stay the course, and you really build the inner strength of self-control. So we have to have first courage to move out of our comfort zone. So if we're not used to rising every morning with an attitude of gratitude, or we're not used to meditating or visualizing, I mean, any one of the things that we ask you to do on the daily mode of operation, moving your body for, at least 20 minutes a day, then, if we're not used to that, and that's outside of our comfort zone, then we need to have that courage to apply this new self-discipline. And then looking at wisdom, so wisdom combined with courage together, we're basically showing that we're not afraid to consider new knowledge or ideas that are outside of the norm. So for instance, this idea of our e-commerce business, a lot of people are used to a 9-to-5 kind of job. A lot of people are used to selling an actual item. So buy the item, send it to Amazon, have it sitting there on the shelves, and then sell it from there. But we have this opportunity that, first of all, all the products that we want to sell, they can be virtual. And so it's a print on demand. So we're actually now using this wisdom that Rachel and our team, a wonderful team of coaches, has brought before us. And so with that wisdom, with their knowledge, with what they have learned, we are now able to take that and apply it to our life. And when you look at that with the aspect of courage, because we're talking about all these virtues together, then, having the courage to implement the wisdom and not fall on old patterns or ways of being, or just something that we're used to, what we're used to thinking, how we're used to doing things. We've all lived a fruitful life and a long life. So we definitely have a lot of experience that we can use on an everyday basis. But here, we're being asked to learn something new. We're being asked to gain new wisdom, a new way of looking at things. And lastly, just to kind of show you how it commingles all of the four together, if we're looking at justice or compassion, when we combine that with courage, then we have the inner strength to do what is right, what is moral, what is right, what is in our highest values. And so if we're moving, or again, to relate it back to our business, when we're going to present these products to the world, we're not going to, if our customer gets a broken mug, we're definitely going to replace it. If, we have an opportunity to ship out the mug, in a way that will protect it, then we're definitely going to go ahead and do that. And just even the way that we make business decisions, if we make them in a compassionate way, in a way that aligns with our core values, with what we stand for, what we put in the highest, then, we're not looking for the popular vote, or we're not looking for what everyone else is doing. We're actually making decisions, courageous decisions, and leading, to justice, or to that compassion, to move our business in this way. And so I really love this way of looking at, taking this ancient Greek wisdom and applying it to our everyday life. And I want to ask you, and I see your hand up, Mark, but I'll present the question and I'll let you speak as well. I'm glad that you've already felt touched by the topic. But one, I'll present a couple of questions and you can decide which one you'd like to answer. So one would be, which of these cardinal virtues speaks most to you? And then which one do you embody the most in your life? And maybe there's none, but maybe there's all of them. And how do you see that when you apply this type of these types of virtues to your life, what do you see come back to you? Or how are you able to then navigate your life in a prosperous way? So let's hear from Mark first. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great topic, because what it comes down to for me is that it's interesting to look back and say human nature really hasn't changed that much, really, in essence of where we were in ancient times compared to now. And we're still trying to discover who we are and discover life and answer those intrinsic questions that we try to find out about ourselves. And it reminds me of a book that I read many years ago in university called The Man of Knowledge, a Yaqui Way of Knowledge. And it's about the Yaqui people of North America. And the four virtues, if you will, very similar, is fear, conquering fear, then comes knowledge. With knowledge comes power. And then with power comes old age. And how are you going to move forward with that old age? And it really solidifies for me that the ancient virtues of courage, self-discipline, wisdom, and compassion. And bringing it to our business, it's almost like we have to discover this inner strength. We have to conquer the fears that we have within of each of us. And I know that I'm always looking at my inner strength, and one fear comes up, and when I conquer a fear, another fear comes in. And I'm always developing that courage. And I'm always discovering self-discipline, which is personal development, and reading from the experts that have gone before me. And I'm always seeking wisdom, which we're doing now. We're learning a new skill in the virtual reality of e-commerce. And also we have to have compassion. We have to have patience, and we have to know when to stand in our own power, but also to be open to learning a new skill and where we are. So for me, it was more of how human nature has not changed. And to your question, I think the one that really stood out for me is the one that you talked mostly on, is courage, because that is, once you conquer fear, knowledge follows it, because now that's no longer an issue in your life. So once we have all conquered the fear, whatever that fear is, that's knowledge now that we can take into the real world and be of service and help ourselves, but also help people around us, like Missy has done. She's almost conquered, and I'm picking on Missy here only because she spent the time to learn the e-commerce, and now people are gravitating to her saying, how do I do this? You've done this, help me. And she's conquered that little mini fear that people are going to, ooh, this is new, and I have to, it's a little overwhelming. So it's a great topic. And I think it works in our personal life, but it also works in business. And it's key. And I love it.
I love it, Mark. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for also reflecting on how each of them speaks to you personally. And I agree. I think that, on one hand, we're constantly evolving, but then on the other hand, so much stays the same. And that's an interesting thing, because we change and we evolve and we learn, but there's always something that we can learn from our past and from our ancestors. And I love how you even, you reflected on Missy, and maybe even without noticing, you gave her all of those attributes of all of those virtues, because you'd said, she's conquered that fear. Now she's gained the wisdom because she's sharing it with others. And even the way that she's doing it is with compassion and, just being willing to share with everyone else is fantastic. And so, she's self-disciplined herself, of course, in learning this course and learning everything. And so that was a beautiful thing. Just calling her out, you were able to show and reflect all of these virtues in the way that Missy has been helping everyone here on these calls. I've witnessed it. So, that's beautiful. So thank you for that. Michael, let's hear from you.
To unmute there for a second. I agree with the word that resonated me with courage. However, I didn't want to let that be my gut instinct without inner reflection. So when I looked at the words, even though courage is the one that pops out right away, and that's the word. Discipline is the one I struggle with the most. For example, I literally just woke up about just before the call, like 15 minutes before, and I've got alarms up the yin yang. I don't know what happened today. I literally, it was a good time at night. I said, okay, I'm shutting the TV off because it's my little thing before bed. I'm getting ready. I just kind of lay back in my couch, like, okay, I get ready for the day. I was out until 11 o'clock, just out. Like, I don't even, maybe I'm coming down with something. I don't know. However, my body said, guess what? You need this. So when it comes to discipline, sometimes you have to push past those things that we know we're procrastinating about. We know that these are things we need to do, but you know what? Maybe I'll do this instead. Or not even procrastination, but someone was saying about the sabotage, self-sabotage. Even with positive things, oh, I'm going to make a cake. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do something, and guise it under these different phrases or attitudes. We still have to be disciplined to get where we want. And like I say, you're saying with these four, now they're cardinal values. So this was very important to Greeks. So it's, again, discipline is something that you have to do. We find that the Greeks in their armies were extremely disciplined. The Spartans, the Romans. I mean, there is no room for maybe I can't, won't, perhaps. It's like, you do what you do or you die. And sometimes we have to have that kind of ironclad determination and discipline to get the things that we want and get things done. So that's why I said, courage definitely resonates like Mark with me. Not like with Mark. Mark's ideas as well resonate with me. However, the discipline is the thing that I was overlooking as far as those four, which I probably need the most attention to.
Yeah. And that's beautiful too, because you're recognizing where you could use some more emphasis. And I think it's a journey of a life, really, and that's something that also Mark pointed out. He was saying, I can recognize all these phases in my life. And it's a life journey. So right now you're saying, okay, I'm lacking in the self-discipline, even though I really, really am committed and I've put all of these clocks and alarms and everything. And I think that the first step is just acknowledging. You recognize it, you see it for what it is. So you're holding yourself accountable, and that's huge. And then the transformation begins from there. So, you'll create some steps that work for you. You'll cultivate new habits. You'll apply things in a way that can help you create more self-discipline. And maybe there is sometimes a thing with even just that word discipline. We hear that and we think, oh, rulers or restrictions right? It's like this word. It's an ancient word, and we just have all of these connotations to it. And so I think even looking at the idea of how self-disciplined or habits is a great word,
highly effective
habits that help you move forward, that help you create the business that you want, the life that you want. That is fantastic. So it might be also in the word, that it's like we hear sometimes we need to rebel against things, that we don't really appreciate the word of. So thank you, Michael. Thanks for sharing. Missy, let's hear from you.
First of all, thank you, Karen, and thank you, Mark, for the lovely things you said. I really appreciate it. And I love helping whoever I can with whatever I know. Not that I know everything. What I know, I'm willing to share. And usually with a big mouth. As for these virtues, yes, the Greeks recognize them as the four cardinal points of human beingness. And Catholic doctors then later perfected them. They used the Greek philosophers, they listened to them, but they perfected them in Christianity, perfected it for the world. So I just don't want to leave it back there.
No problem.
As far as courage goes, I have nearly died. And it took courage to live through that. But that doesn't mean I mastered courage. You have to keep mastering courage. What was harder for me was took more courage for me to get through my parents' death I had complete calm when I knew I was dying. But when my parents were going, that was much harder. So I had to keep doing it And I prefer Patton's definition of courage. Well, one of the bravest, wisest, greatest warriors who ever lived. He said, courage is just fear holding on 1 second longer. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't mean you're not afraid. You just keep going. One more second. Just tell yourself 1 more second. Can you imagine those poor men on Omaha Beach? Just as the fight that you asked, I think of them all the time when I need courage. I think of those boys walking onto those beaches, doing what they had to do, seeing their best friend get killed, and they had to still keep going forward. So we don't have to have that kind of courage to make a mug. Temperance, I'd like to think of John's, depending on what your temperament is, that is usually the hardest. And I like to think of John's definition of self-mastery as giving yourself a command and following through on it. I think of it every day, especially when I don't follow through on it. John is in my head, just like Adam's voice is constantly in my head. So the wisdom is just, the more you do, the more you pick up. And justice is in the writers like Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles. You don't have a competitive spirit. You have a creative spirit, and you wish for everyone else what you wish for yourself. And then you have all those virtues. But courage has to be gained and regained over and over every day, sometimes every minute. Yeah. So thank you very much. That's basically what I wanted to say.
Love that, Missy. Wow, I was getting chills as you were talking. Still have chills.
So my hair, that's what did.
And it resonates on a soul level. I, usually get chills. So that was beautiful. And it's true, we are definitely, all of these virtues, I think, are something that we have to repeatedly cultivate them over and over and over again, because maybe today we have the self-discipline that we need, but tomorrow we don't. Just like you had mentioned, sometimes you have a voice in your head. And you also shared your method of how you look to people. And I think that is a fantastic key. I think we should all have, people in our mind, or, people that we look up to. It could be family members, it could be people that we know, but just, a way of pulling courage from there, pulling some self-discipline, whatever it is that we need. When we look to these stories that inspire ourselves, and you gave some really brave ones related to the wars and all that. And interestingly enough, I watched a war movie yesterday, so that's also in my head. And of course, luckily that's not what we have to deal with. However, we have our daily things, and we are hit daily with the option to either act or not act. And it's that moment when we decide to act in spite of all the things that are going on in our lives, and we have many, but we decide to act, and we decide to take our lives by the reins, and we decide to move, not because we don't experience fear or self-doubt or worry or all of those things. We act in spite of it, because we want to be on the other side of that. So that was a beautiful share, Missy. Thank you so much. And you have your hand up again. Was that on purpose, or?
No, I thought I took it down.
Because I put it down for you. You're good. Let's hear from Pauline.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Karen, for that. This morning, I on my way to work, I was reading my daily readings that I do on the way to work. And this one was entitled Change Your Thinking. And the part of it that I read, so this is found in Isaiah chapter 54, verse 3. And this sort of stood out to me. So it's talking basically about forgetting the former things and do not dwell on the past. And also about enlarging. So it was basically enlarging your tent, making it bigger for what's coming. And this part that I read, and I thought, this is interesting. It says, someone said dreams always come in sizes too big, so you can grow to fill them. don't settle for mediocrity in your work, in your relationship, or your walk with God. And Mark Twain said, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you don't do than by the ones you did. And that's what really came out to me. And I thought, well, when you look at the things you haven't done, you're disappointed that, oh, I wish I'd done it. So, and then the things that you have done, that even though they haven't gone to plan, you've learned so much from that. Even if it was a mistake, you've still learned from that mistake. So you've learned something. So when you're talking about fear actually really stops you from making the decisions that you ought to make, and to move forward. So I just want to say thank you to Missy. Missy, I've got my SD shop open. Woo-hoo. With all it was, they sent me, I must have emailed them. I tried calling twice. Then I emailed them, like 4 emails it took. And they were sending me the message they sent me. I thought, really? And I just kept on emailing, and eventually they just sent me a letter, email to say, yeah, it's open. Sorry for the inconvenience. So, so the rest of this says it's really interesting. If you don't mind me reading it.
Sure.
So, okay, so let me just read. Okay, so it says, throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the wind, explore, dream, discover. Even if you came from a background of addiction, poverty, depression, abuse, or low self-esteem, God can enable you to rise up and pull an end to that old mindset of defeat. So fear really does keep you in bondage, stop you from actually making a step. That, because I've always believed that we're all born with a purpose. No one's born with no purpose.
Great.
But we have got to make that happen by moving forward, taking the step, taking another step, just taking small steps. So, okay, so I'm in a position where I came onto this, and I'm working, and my job is quite heavy, but each day I'm feeling I need to make a decision. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do something different was because I wanted to retire. And I'm feeling now that I need to just make that step and do exactly that in order so I can put more time into building my own e-commerce business. So that is what's on my heart, and that is what I'm feeling is the right time for me to do now. I've spoken to my managers, and I said, you have to go with how you're really feeling. And I feel this is the right time for me to just do that now. So that is what I'm planning on doing. So thank you so much. I've been really encouraged by all of this. I haven't really said much. Usually I'm very chatty, but I've been very silent. But I just want to say thank you, John. Thank you for all your encouragement. I'm really appreciating it in the background. So thank you all. And thank you, Jan, as well, because she also helped me. So thanks, everyone.
Yay. Fantastic.
Thank you.
A beautiful share. Thank you, Pauline. Thanks for sharing those beautiful quotes, and thanks for sharing your personal journey. I think that personal shares and personal journey, we all can derive strength. So if we were saying, there are people that we need to pull strength from, then your story is inspiring in that way. And we can all, you're taking that step, even though it might be a little scary or might be a little bit a big change in your life, you're still willing to put yourself out there and make the change that you feel in your gut is right for you. And that's inspiring. So thank you for that. Lady Scott, let's hear from you.
So I'm going to kind of recap over the things I heard as nugget points. Thank you all for giving me this time. I acknowledge you all. For the cardinal values, I kind of start to write, okay, this is their technique, their way of character building. This was character where they were seeing it as they need to build in these areas to have a better and a more fulfilled life. So I heard when Mark was talking about the courage, and then Michael's stagnation of learning, where he kind of stops and pauses at things. And then when Missy was kind of referencing as yes, it's a Greek philosophy, but there's also it within the Christianity. And then I was like, you're right. We have 4 as door in the Christianity in the numerology, and that is like opportunities and things of that nature. So I was like, okay, everybody is saying very similar things. And then when Pauline came out, I started to clap. I didn't know I was off mute, because she was coming from the same area as I was seeing for the fear. But for me, this is what you referenced something that says we learn through fear. And then I wrote down below that says you need to identify your fear. There's power in identifying the fear. You can't move forward if you haven't identified what's your blockage. If you don't know if it's the stagnation, if you don't know if you have the passion for the inner strength to move forward, you will just stay in that same place until you say, this is a barrier. Something like Pauline said, this is a barrier for me to step into it. So my piece of everything I heard would be identify your fears. And when you write that down, you know what your next step will have to be, because it's going to take the courage to push you forward.
I love that. I love that, Lady Scott. And you actually now inspired my next topic. You just reminded me of something, because it is about identifying. It's about that accountability. You know, we can so easily remove our accountability and just say, well, you know, it's the nature of things, or it's society, it's the government, it's the weather, it's my boss, it's my husband, or I mean, whoever we want to push the blame onto. And that's such an easy downward spiral where we're not holding ourselves accountable. We're not lifting us up away from that. And it is true. The first step is you got to see it. First, you got to see it. You got to hold yourself accountable for what's going on in your life. And then you can make that change and that push. So that was beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for that great recap. And listening to everyone's words and putting it all together is fantastic. I always like to, I know that, you know, you're relating it back to religion. I always like to be as inclusive as possible. So I acknowledge that there are different religions that each one of us observes. And so just to be able to honor everyone where they are, I like to keep it as something more, you know, inclusive. But it's great when you're able to see that connection to what resonates most with you, you know, that's your truth. So that's fantastic. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Sarah, let's hear from you.
Hi. Well, I'm actually going to be doing something courageous now and share myself, and I want to talk about my personal life where this really covers the subject. And it might be enlightening to people too, because not everybody knows about this information. So my whole life, I thought there was something wrong with me, and because I couldn't get myself to do anything, and I didn't want to go with the sheep of the flock and do normal stuff either. But I kept myself safe, and but I didn't know why until 6 months ago. I found out it's called limbic system impairment, where your brain gets stuck in a trauma loop where the stress builds up in your body and goes from your body to all the way to your brain and from your gut as well, and it just builds up, and then it gets stuck in there, and it goes up in levels. So the more the stress builds up, the more autoimmune disease, like chemical imbalance starts happening. Your chemical sensitivity starts happening, electromagnetic and pain management, stuff like that. I have chemical imbalance. I don't have chemical sensitivity or electromagnetic, but people do end up with and have serious autoimmune disease stuff. But why am I saying this is because this is all controlled by the limbic system, and the limbic system is the place that controls fear. So your limbic system doesn't know the difference back when we were in the caveman times, that you're supposed to be away scared from tigers back then. But now it takes laundry and everything, and you're making phone calls, you're stuff like that as something you need to be feared from. So it's So if you have a tendency to not do things, it's because your brain is wired to be like that. But it just goes really bad, and unless you rewire your brain. So that's what I've been doing last 6 months. If you rewire your brain and you take action to get past this, you can actually go back to being normal again. But until then, you fear everything, and you don't want to. And this is a new thing for me to do this course, and I signed up to so many things, and I never took action. I did so many things, but I never took this as many actions and show because my dad used to. I never yell at me for sharing my truth with people because I'm a very conscious, awake person. So when I used to share myself, he was like, "Oh no, don't do that." He was trying to keep me safe. So I want to say is it does take a lot of courage, but at the end, if your limbic is programmed the way to keep you safe, it will do like if you want to lose weight or you want, let's say, start with this business, but your comfort is if you're like it's programmed to bring you to comfort zone, whatever your comfort was beforehand. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I can hear something in the
little bit of
background.
background noise there. It's all right.
So whatever your comfort zone is, it will steer you back towards that, unless you're conscious and awake and aware, and you keep telling your limbic system, that's not what I want. I want to take this new action. Your limbic system is going to bring you back to your comfort zone. So that's what I wanted to say. And this is a very important subject for me. And I think a lot of people don't actually know about this. We're not really taught about this in anywhere.
I love it.
So
thank you so much,
yeah.
Sarah. Thank you for being brave to speak up. And I see how you're already reprogramming because it's Sarah, AKA Pink Dancing Queen. So, it starts with those little things. And I definitely agree with you. And I'm walking testimony that we can reprogram our mind, and even physical ailments and things that happen to us and that we think they're for the rest of our lives. And that's it. We can change it. And we can make these affirmations. Some great affirmations for courage are, I'm a brave and bold badass. I choose courage over comfort. I take accountability for my decision. I will be triumphant. I will never give up no matter what's going on around me. I will never give up. I am a divine soul in human incarnation. I mean, there are so many that we can pull up. I can feel fear and still move forward towards my goal. And so we can choose the affirmations that we want, and we can just say them daily and reprogram that fear, reprogram our mind, reprogram our body. It's mind, body, soul, and the emotions on all levels we live. So thank you for that beautiful and empowering share. I really appreciate it. John Lavinia, anything to add to our conversation today?
Just brilliant stuff. So glad to have a little bit of time here with you, Karen, and of course, all of our esteemed members. Tomorrow's Fun Friday, everyone. You guys know our policy. Actually, Karen, you may not know our policy because you're new here. Hold on a second. So we have 3 policies for this call. Number 1 is if you can't be on time, be early. Number 2 is if a dog barks while your microphone is unmuted, you must present the dog so that we can all enjoy the dog. Okay. And number 3, somebody's got to tell a joke on Friday. All right. So come with a joke, family friendly. Okay. And we'll do dog show and everything else as you guys like. So thanks again, Karen. We'll see everybody back here tomorrow. Let's make it a great day.